edition of Anibal Silveyra. Pará. No quiero que me cobren las royalties, te decía entonces. Welcome to a new... Espera que voy a poner la púa sobre el tocadisco, que esa es menos complicada, ¿no? Porque, a ver... ¿Ya estaba empezado? Bueno, no importa. Te decía, welcome to a new edition of Anibal Silveyra Insta Live Show. Hoy tengo un invitado súper especial. Estoy muy contento porque tengo a alguien, pero así como que representa a los argentinos in the Great White Way. Sí, on Broadway. Así que mira, son las 4:02 de la tarde, estoy en vivo para vos desde Hollywood. Hoy está, te digo, el clima en Hollywood está tremendo. Viste que siempre es la ciudad del sol, dicen en Hollywood, nunca llueve, siempre está el sol brillando y qué sé yo. Bueno, mira, hoy te cuento que hace, bueno, si hablamos español, voy a decirlo primero en español, 63 grados, no, perdón, decirlo en castellano, Aníbal. 17 grados centígrados, hace 17 grados centígrados, precipitación 1%, la humedad 63% y los vientos soplan 8 kilómetros la hora. But if you are a member of my English speaker audience, whatever, here is 63 Fahrenheit degree, precipitation 1%, humidity 63%, and the winds are 5 miles per hour. Mientras que en la ciudad de Houston, donde está en este momento mi invitado Alejo Vietti, no lo puedo creer, Alejo Vietti, para quien pido un fuerte aplausos. Sí, señoras y señores, siendo las 4:00, uy, se callaron justo todos los del aplauso de golpe. A ver, vamos, un aplauso. Igual se callan todos de golpe, genial. Gracias a la gente que tengo en el estudio hoy, porque hay un montón de gente rodeándome en el estudio. No, de verdad lo digo. Gracias, ¿qué pasa? ¿Por qué se ríen? Ah, porque no entienden un pepino la vela lo que... Of course, you guys are speaking English, right? So where are you guys from today? What's cool? Hey, don't understand anything? Ah, no, claro. Ya sé, son un tour de todos japoneses, pero yo no hablo japonés, así que bueno, thank you, welcome to be in the studio. Gracias por estar hoy en el estudio, gracias por estar ahí del otro lado mirándome. ¿Qué es esto? ¿Televisión? ¿Teatro? ¿Radio? No, es esta nueva manera de comunicarnos, ¿viste? En esta nueva era, ahora el teléfono, esta manera portátil de comunicarnos, que no es nada más ni nada menos que tu teléfono. Porque antes, decir la verdad, no era muy fácil ir a todos lados con el aparato de la televisión para no interrumpir en el medio de la televisión que estabas viendo, qué programa estabas viendo, hasta que no apareció, viste, la posibilidad del tivo de pararlo. Depende de la marca que tengas o lo que sea, o que tenías, porque a lo mejor ya no lo tenés más. No podías llevarte el aparato del televisor, ¿qué digo? ¿No? El aparato adentro del baño. Pero ahora sí, señoras y señores, ahora me podés ver en cualquier parte de tu casa. Es más, si estás en el medio del baño, qué sé yo, apoyarlo ahí sobre la mesita, por ahí encontrás un cenicero, un broche de colgar la ropa, me pones a mí ahí y me sostenés y voy a apoyar para que no me caiga. Y hablando de apoyo, quiero agarrar... Espera, no me fui, estoy acá. Es que está muy alta la silla o muy baja la mesa. Quiero agradecer a mis sponsors que me apoyan todo el tiempo en estos vivos. El Suplemento, la única revista argentina que sale en California. El Suplemento, que lo podés encontrar en las redes sociales, @elsuple. So if you are a member of the audience, I know I already said that, you can find El Suplemento is the only magazine, Argentine magazine, published here in all California, and you are gonna find this, for example. El aviso que agradezco a mis sponsors, los chicos del Suplemento, Pablo Garriga, gracias, te mando un abrazo grande. Acá podés encontrar entonces la nota, como te decía, no la nota, el aviso en el Suple, que lo podés encontrar en @el Suple y leer todo. Maestro, a ver, espere, toque un poquito más bajo. Espere, tocadisco. Ay, sí, me estaba agujereando la oreja. Hola, me están ahí saludando del otro lado. En realidad estoy haciendo tiempo, calentando la pantalla para que nos vean un poco más de gente. Así que llama a tu tía, decirle, si estás en WhatsApp con alguien, decirle a tus amigos, hey, seguilo a Anibal Silveyra, ahora está en el medio. Porque si la verdad que estás harto de las noticias, viste que por lo general son malas noticias que estás leyendo desde todos lados, de todo orden, te atacan, de la televisión, de los diarios, todo. Es un momento de esparcimiento verme a mí en vivo y sobre todo hoy que lo tengo a Alejo Vietti, no sabés, qué diseñador de ropa teatral en la que nos representa, por supuesto en Broadway y en un montón de espectáculos que ahora te voy a empezar a contar. Pero en este momento te quiero contar que el clima donde está mi querido Alejo Vietti es en este momento, mira, lo voy a poner en centígrados por si estás en Buenos Aires y me estás escuchando. En la ciudad de Houston, donde se encuentra en este momento en gira Alejo Vietti, hace 23 grados Celsius, precipitación 96%. Lo que mata es la precipitación, ¿viste? 96% la humedad, 84% en Houston, Texas. Y los vientos soplan a 11 kilómetros la hora. Pero if I put that in English, look at this. Look at the weather like in Houston, where Alejo Vietti, my guest, my special guest is now. Frío por ahí, me dice Sandra Cecilia. Hola, Sandra. Espera que ahora te voy a mandar saludos. The weather like today in Houston, Texas is 73 Fahrenheit degree, precipitation 96%, humidity 84%, and the winds are 7 miles per hour. Así que si estás en Houston, hace lluvia, te morís de calor, tenés que ponerte, no sé, paraguas todo el tiempo. Pero quiero mandar saludos a todos. Bueno, ahora en este momento ya hay algunos que se están ahí metiendo, que me empezaron a ver. Por ejemplo, mira, algunos entran y salen, pero sé que está Beloki, Lauro Gladys, Natividad Cantarini, uno y otro más viéndonos. Laureano, Romano. Hola, Laureano, gracias por estar viéndonos, que me están mandando ahí. MGP, Lucas y Postizos. Hola, Mónica, ¿cómo estás? Seguí esa cuenta, el otro día vi, Mónica es así también dentro del rubro de lo que es diseño teatral. Ella es la que hace las pelucas, postizos y todo, y además es una maestra genial porque te puede enseñar a cómo hacer pelucas. El otro día vi, Mónica, contame después si escuchás este vivo, porque me encanta cuando entran. ¡Silvio! Pará, voy a hacer una pausa. Maestro Uli, pare que me está agujereando ya. Gracias. Pido un fuerte aplauso para mi querido Silvio. Silvio Gustavo Iturralde, desde Europa, me estás viendo desde España en este... Silvio, ¿dónde estás en este momento? ¿En Sitges? Qué linda esa ciudad. Son las 4:08 para mí, en vivo y en directo para vos que estás ahí del otro lado del teléfono, porque te decía, ¿esto qué es la televisión? No, pero sin embargo me ves, es decir, hay una cámara, por lo tanto, yo, viste, me doy cuenta si está la luz bien, si no. El teatro es porque me podés dar tu feedback, por ejemplo, saludar o decir qué pavada que estás diciendo Aníbal. Hola Aníbal, me dice, hola, ¿cómo estás? Ahí, a ver, espérate. Hola, Laureano Romano del otro lado, Lauro, ve lo que te adoramos, Aníbal, gracias, sos un grande, no, un grande de qué, de edad. Grama Luz del otro lado que nos está viendo ahí también me manda saludos. El tiempo es todo el tiempo, desde Uruguay, no te puedo creer. Hay una... No, ya no es una sorpresa, porque hasta el director lo está contando, están haciendo, chicos, un documental, así que se viene algo relacionado también a El tiempo es todo el tiempo. Los que entienden saben de qué estoy hablando. Maggie del otro lado, Gómez, ¿cómo estás ahí del otro lado? Te mando un abrazo enorme, Magdalena, antes que nada, y gracias por estar ahí siempre al cuidado de todas las cosas que suceden en mi carrera. Clarisa Balcarce, gracias, Coco Junta también. Sandra Cecilia Veal ahí del otro lado. Hola, me dice, tanto tiempo. Sí, es verdad, hace frío por Buenos Aires, hace un poco de frío por Buenos Aires. En este momento, mira, te voy a contar porque, como les decía antes, hoy tengo un invitado, pero súper especial. Déjame que voy a encontrar un poco de su material acá. ¿Dónde lo tengo? ¿Qué estoy hablando? Lo tengo acá. Ahí estoy. Mira, si me pongo a leer todo lo que Alejo Vietti, diseñador... ¿Me quedé sin micrófono? Sí, claro, porque me quedé sin batería. Mejor así no hablo con esta pavada. Pero te voy a contar un poco más o menos que tengo acá, que encontré un montón de información en el internet sobre Alejo Vietti, que es un diseñador de ropa, custom designer, y por supuesto tiene varios proyectos que dice Upcoming Project, pero fíjate nada más ni nada menos que fue una de las cosas, títulos que puedo decir acerca de Alejo Vietti en Broadway, nada más ni nada menos que Holiday Inn. Dirigidos por Gordon Greenberg en el Roundabout Theatre Company, Alejo es uno de los diseñadores de ese show. Allegiance en Stafford Arena, Long Great Theatre también, en Beautiful, The Carole King Musical, dirigido por Mark Bruni, en Broadway, en London, en el Tour Nacional de los Estados Unidos, Japón y Australia. Nada más ni nada menos que Alejo Vietti es el diseñador de todos estos, de todos estos vestuarios que se utilizan en los espectáculos. Así que hoy, yo desde el punto de vista del actor, ¿verdad? Desde acá, ¿qué? Merienda tardía porque tengo que salir al colegio a las 22:10. Pero no te preocupes, Sandra. Después vos sabés que me ves. Si estás preocupada porque no me podés ver de todo el vivo entero, que sabés que siempre estamos en 1 hora, no te preocupes. Después lo ves porque lo voy a dejar. Pero mira, Off-Broadway en New York, mira lo que ha diseñado Alejo Vietti, mi invitado del día de hoy. Evita, Rogers and Hart, Merit and Angel, Amy and the Orphan, Smokey Joe's Café, Hey Look Me Over, The New Yorkers, NY Spring Spectacular, Paint Your Wagon, Hearts and Lights, The Dance and Death, Star of David, Storefront Church, All Jews Telling Jokes, Tryst, Manipulation, Secrets of the Trade, Nightingale, Rooms, Grace. Si me está escuchando Alejo, voy a decir, pronuncia, quién sabe cómo. Hay, mira, miles. Make Me a Song. Tryst, estoy diciéndolo bien, Alejo, ya me vas a corregir. Of a White Christmas, The Wow Wow Sisters, Roulette, 5 Flights, The Last Sunday in June, 16 Wounded, 2 by Tennessee, Serviceman, Love's Labor, Lost, Measure, Formation, Othello, nada más ni nada menos. Imagínate de todo lo que le puedo llegar a preguntar, o por lo menos de las cosas que creo que a mí como actor me interesa saber de lo que significa también un diseñador de vestuario del teatro, ¿no? Es decir, qué tipo de cosas el diseñador le pasan por la cabeza a la orden al momento de diseñar para un personaje, si tiene en cuenta al actor, si tiene en cuenta no solamente a la silueta del actor, sino también cómo el actor va a utilizar eso, me imagino. Hay un montón de títulos, fíjate, espectáculos musicales que pueden ser regional. Vos sabés que regional acá en Estados Unidos le decimos a todo lo que es el teatro local, es decir, en la ciudad donde estás hay teatros, por ejemplo, regional, pero muchas veces invitan a los artistas, como en este caso Alejo Vietti, Newsies, Anything Goes, Evita, Oliver, The Royal Family of Broadway, The Pajama Game, Press to Change, Ew, Kiss Me Kate, Beaches, The Musical, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Irving Berlin's Holiday Inn, Fiddler of the Roof, Nerds, Stars of David, The Legend, Carousel, Dan Yankee, Sunday in the Park with George, Guys and Dolls, Camelot, Spelling Bee, Backwards in Hills, Annika Jorgan, 1776, Barnum, Camelot, Big River, Room, 1776 again, Altar Boys, Romantic Poetry, The Witches of Eastwick, Meet John Doe. Yo estoy leyendo títulos que son impresionantes de imaginarse sin hablar con él, es decir, sin hablar con mi invitado del día de hoy. Hoy traté de pensar qué cosas muchas veces yo como actor me vi en la necesidad de hablar con el diseñador de ropa, ¿verdad? ¿Qué cosas son las que discute un actor? Por eso quiero escuchar la palabra de Alejo. Alejo, siendo las 4:15, en este momento te voy a dar la invitación. Ay, espera, a ver, espero que me salga bien esto. Estoy poniendo Alejo Custom-Designer es el Instagram, la cuenta de Alejo Vietti, mi invitado del día de hoy, que ahí lo tengo. Oh my God, espera, voy a pedir un gran aplauso. Por ahí, espérate, Alejo. Gracias a los chicos del estudio. Ahí estoy con. ¿Me escuchas bien, Alejo?
Te escucho, Aníbal, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien,
Un poco
muy bien. Hoy es tu día off. ¿Es el único día que tenés libre, Alejo, y estás hablando conmigo?
Bueno, sí, por supuesto, un gusto.
En realidad, para mí, voy a decir esto, voy a decir una infidencia, pero yo tenía muchas ganas de hablar con vos hace mucho tiempo. Primero porque, bueno, en definitiva, te agradezco primero que hayas aceptado hacer este vivo, te doy la bienvenida. Yo en esos 15 minutos traté de calentar un poco la pantalla para que nos mire alguien. Pero en realidad me salía de la vaina anoche pensando todo lo que yo podría preguntarte. Pero en realidad más que empezar a preguntarte, además, primero quiero saber cómo estás hoy. Estás de hoy de vacaciones, ¿no?
Estoy Estoy bien, no, estoy bien. En realidad no, de vacaciones tuve que hacer como 4 o 5 Zooms por trabajo, empezar a leer una obra nueva, así que... pero todo bien.
Recién Alejo leía algunos de los títulos, porque la página esa que agarré es larguísima, tiene como 4 o 5 páginas de tu resumen, es muy extenso. Es un placer leer los títulos en los que tú has tenido que diseñar.
Bueno, gracias, Aníbal. La verdad que más que nada porque hace tanto tiempo que estoy acá, ¿no? Que tuve la oportunidad de trabajar bastante.
Eso pensaba, desde el punto... sé que naciste en Rosario, ¿verdad?
Rosarino.
Menos mal que no me equivoqué. Eso lo
Cuna,
leí de un amigo en común nuestro,
en
Dani Maña.
la, en la cuna de
Querido
la...
Dani,
Dani Mani es un gran amigo.
gran amigo, por eso leí, hice hincapié en algo que él comentaba y que decía sobre todo cuando vos estás nominado para premios, que muchas veces a uno le cuesta decirlo, ¿viste? Decir que me gané un premio, pero es tan lindo cuando por ahí los amigos lo reconocen, lo recuerdan, lo mencionan, ¿no? En este momento estás en Houston, ¿no, Alejo?
Estoy en Houston, efectivamente, y está lloviendo, lo cual es
Y está yo,
inusual un poco para
¿viste?
acá.
Yo leía, por eso te preguntaba dónde estabas antes de empezar, porque yo sabía que estábamos a 2 horas de diferencia y me había parecido que me habías dicho, voy a estar en Houston el lunes, es el día libre, y ahí yo enganché una fecha para este vivo. Pero si me remonto a Rosario, ¿vos te acordás, por ejemplo, cuando naciste, qué día era de la semana? ¿Te acordás? ¿Te dijeron alguna vez?
Ah,
No te acordás.
nunca, nunca me puse a pensar eso, jamás.
¿Y a la
Ahora,
hora que naciste?
ahora creo que voy a ir a Google y voy a fijarme qué
¿Qué
día
día
nací.
era?
Nací, obviamente, esa es la fecha.
Claro. ¿Y te acordás, por ejemplo, a qué hora o tu fecha de nacimiento
Eso
dice
sí,
alguien alguna vez?
fue a las 12:15 del mediodía, hora local de Rosario.
Ay, qué divertido. Y después de Rosario así empezás vamos a como a avanzar, fast forward, ¿no? Ya estás en Jardín de Infante, vas al cole. ¿Siempre viviste en una misma casa desde que naciste? ¿Siempre viviste en la misma casa?
No, no, vivimos en Rosario. Al poco tiempo nos mudamos a Tucumán por
Ah,
trabajo de mi papá.
ajá.
Después de ahí nos fuimos a Brasil también por trabajo.
Wow.
Fuimos en Curitiba y después volvimos a, a Rosario y yo me reintegré en la escuela primaria,
Ah,
creo que fue a mitad de tercer grado. Y ahí
o
me quedé
sea
en
que eras
Rosario.
bastante chico cuando iban de un lado para el otro y demás, ¿no?
Sí, pero tampoco me acuerdo mucho, ¿no? Porque era bastante chico. Y de muy pocos recuerdos de Tucumán. Y después de Brasil sí, muchísimos, porque la pasamos muy bien, la verdad que muchos lindos recuerdos. Y después ahí me quedé en Rosario hasta que me mudé a los Estados Unidos en el 97.
Wow, hace un montón, Alejo.
O,
Claro.
o diciembre del 96, una cosa por el estilo.
Qué bárbaro. Yo en el 99, o sea que vale decir yo hace 24, van a ser 27 años ya, 28 casi que tú estás viviendo en Estados Unidos. Es un montón de tiempo, ¿verdad? Y casi más tiempo acá que allá, como quien dice.
Tal cual, tal cual. En realidad, pero es impresionante porque por más que yo haya vivido más tiempo acá, lo mío es 100% argentino.
Me imagino.
100%.
Y además, por ejemplo, ¿no? Si me remonto otra vez a Rosario, tu escuela primaria, ¿te acordás qué escuela era?
Sí, por supuesto que me acuerdo, porque fue la misma que hice el secundario, la misma fue mi papá, y ahora mi hermana es la directora general de todo el colegio, que es la escuela de Nuestra Señora del Rosario de los Hermanos Maristas, que es el equivalente del Champañá de Buenos Aires.
Acá hay gente, pues sabes que también tenemos cierta audiencia en inglés. I know that there's members of the audience that they speak English. And thank you so much, Stephanie Ledina, because she says, I can't understand a word, but it is very lovely to see your face, Alejo. And she sends us a couple of hearts. Do you mind, Alejo, if we switch to English for a minute?
No, 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 I can do it in whatever language you want.
Since we do have certain members of the audience that they are trying to understand what we are saying, and we are talking about Rosario, I should say your hometown when you are about, probably because you were in third grade primary school, about, I don't know, maybe 9 years old, 10, 11 or
No,
so. When it is the first
eight,
time?
I was 7,
Eight.
8. Yes.
7, 8. So younger, you're younger than that. And you remember the school that you were about to tell me what name of the school, right?
Yes, yes. definitely. It was also the Maris brothers,
The
hermanos Maris.
Marista. This, yeah, the Marist brothers. And my question is in regards of when you are a young kid, when is the first time that you have some feelings that you probably are going to, I don't know if maybe sometimes we play when we are kids about certain games or, we play certain things. And there are things that when we are adults in life represents our job. When do you remember for the first time that probably Alejo wanted to be somehow in the theater world?
As far as I remember, I know it could sound like a cliche or something like that, but as far as I remember, I had such a fascination for like the entertainment arts, the theater and and movies. So I will watch a movie, I remember, and then I will play with these little figurines called Playmobil, and I will like reproduce the movie, with like shoe boxes or like paper or whatever. The funny thing is, like, I will always, play the whole afternoon doing my own little work of like movie sets or plays or whatever. And then at the end, I will like just put all the toys away, and then everything I build, I will throw it away. I kind of trash it.
Wow.
So somehow in my mind, I was censoring myself of like not pursuing something that I guess from such a young age I loved it. I guess I never thought of it as a career. I thought it more, or maybe it was told, I don't know why, but maybe I thought it was more of a hobby.
Exactly. Well, I think it's because at the very beginning, when you are starting something that is passion, that is your passion, that moves you, I should say, from your heart. There's this kind of, it's a hobby because you never think that somebody's going to pay for you playing like a game. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful, the language, English language, because for me as an actor, to play, means also to represent the character. And for that, I have a question, because remember, everything that I'm going to ask you today is from my actor's point of view.
Totally.
What it is that it moves you to design from the beginning. Now you tell me I'm reading my new project. I'm reading the play, the new project. What is going to be my next job? What do you feel that it moved you for the very first time, genuinely, when you have to design something?
Well, it's very interesting because when I always ask like, what do I do? And I say my costume design, sometimes people like things about it, something kind of close to fashion. But I always say like the big difference is like for me, character comes first. It's all about character. El personaje siempre viene primero. So I help as a designer. I'm just helping in the storytelling and the delineation of the character to make sure that I tell the story that the director wants to say, obviously based on the text, whether it's a play, musical, an opera, ballet, etc. But I have to get in that mindset of the director and trying to extract whatever is the visual world that they have in mind to represent the case. So at the end of the day, whether it's pretty looking or not, everything comes from character. That's why I love so much actors.
And I
really
know, and it's hard to think about that because I don't think much about actors, but the characters. Have you ever had this experience with an actor in where when you go fittings and then the actor says, I don't like this. I do not feel that it represents my character.
Well, thankfully, it never happened that way. It's always a dialogue.
Well, and I will never say that way, okay?
No, it's always like, and actually, as a designer, you learn to read the room, right? And you need to, I always feel like I need to earn the trust of the actor because I get the actor, sometimes, I just meet them on that very same day and you ask them to take off the clothes, to put these other clothes, and it's me and other people in the room just looking at them. So it's not a situation that it's ideal for the person that is so exposed in front of the mirror. So I always make sure that I try to create an environment that is safe, and that I can start building trust. That I want to under trust, and also at the same time I try to read the actor or the performer or the dancer when I look at them in the mirror, and I start collaborating with them. And if I feel, like they react, obviously people react, and if I feel like they don't feel comfortable or don't think it's right, I ask them point blank, and we start a dialogue. And I think it's super important because that's the way we create whatever end up being on stage.
Particularly when you mention dancing sometimes, and the actor has to dance also, go through, musical numbers, and then the clothes, the costumes has to be, I should say, prepared and ready for certain movements, right? Because it's not the same to design for, I should say, the street, like pret-a-porter, things like, I do not know how to say it, but I know that there's certain tricks and differences that you have to take it in mind when you are designing for stage, where the movement has a lot of interfering in the way that the clothes should be made, right?
Totally, not only the movement, but also when you design for stage,
right,
contrary to when you design for film, you have to design for this clothing to last 8 performances a week, sometimes for a very, very long time. So you have to have that in mind: the durability, the movement, all the necessities that the performer needs for. I mean, if it's a dancer, you will approach it in a different way than if you're approaching, a character that could be similar but for a straight play,
right,
because they have they have to be able to move and to do everything that they have to do and still look good and be comfortable and not be all disheveled at the end of a number.
And I think also the pace, when it should be fast, where sometimes the changes needs to be done. Like, oh, we have 35 seconds to change from this outfit to the other one. So I
sometimes
imagine
less than that.
right. Sometimes it's less than that, exactly. So how do you approach that in a costume, in a wardrobe, where it has to be, for example, let's say that it's a period piece in where the wardrobe seems to be more like right, in a sense, like an onion, like more fabric and stuff. So how is it? I mean, you have to take that in mind when you design, right? I mean, if there's a quick change.
Yes, you have it all in mind, and so it depends. It's a very quick change. You figure out ways to make it like as fast as possible. You rig it. You put like snaps and magnets and zippers, and you make things together, so it looks maybe let's say there is a person like as a man in a suit. Sometimes the shirt and the tie and the vest are all together with the pants, and he has a big zipper in the back, so they just put that on and put a jacket on top. I think it's each specific case you approach it in a different way, in whatever works for that moment.
Depending on necessity and how fast the change should be done, or how many changes you have in a play. Also, I'm thinking, what is the fabric that you like the most to work with? Is there any material?
I don't think there's such a thing. I mean, I think people that make clothes for me probably will think that I have something. They will know more than I do, I'm sure. But I think it again depends, what is the costume that we're making. If it's period dress from the 20s, or if it's a suit from 2010, or a suit from 1900s. So depending the costume that you're building, you know what kind of textile you will need in order to make it look the best.
Exactly. And I'm thinking also the lights has a lot of interfering with what materials do you choose and what colors. Is there any relationship straightforward with the light designers as well when you are in the pre-production period of your designs?
Yeah.
I think that you guys in pre-production, I'm sure I'm just trying to make it into a question and see if, is there any relationship between you and the lights designer in order for you to choose the colors?
Oh yeah. Usually, what happens is the lighting designer ask me, what colors and what fabrics I'm using, because like different fabrics react different way. They can absorb the color, or they can like bounce the color off, or if the fabric is like iridescent, that will kind of play in two different colors. So usually, what I do, depending the show and depending the needs of the show, I usually have, like, sometimes I have a walk with the lighting designer, that they come to the shop and I show them racks of clothes of like what I'm trying to use for a scene. Or sometimes, besides the sketches, we put little swatches, like next to each sketch, we put a little piece of fabric that is a fabric that, or at least the main fabric that is being used for that costume. So the designer can have a better idea of what is the color,
Right.
of the color palette that
So
so
what
they
I'm
can.
thinking is that you do a lot of work before you sit up on a table where things are going to be asked to you. Like, for example, what fabric, what color do you think, what color did you feel or dream about this character? And that's how the other one also can put the lights in regards of that necessity as well. And espero que los que no entiendan inglés estén okay con la charla, and I hope that guys who speak English are now a little bit more interested in listening to us. I'm thinking, does the weather also interfere? For example, I remember doing a play. I was on a play, right? Played a character that it required to wear a long coat in London, probably in winter time to represent, the era or whatever. But yes, I remember that, and certainly I didn't have exactly the costume for the rehearsal period. I had it like later on, almost about to open it like 3, 4 days before, and it was so wool, thick winter clothes in summertime in California. The air conditioner was good, but anyways, when I seen that, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna start sweating bullets. Is that something that you have in mind also? Or for example, then if you go on a tour and it's summertime, and sometimes, in a place and the winter clothes that you
Yes,
design.
I mean, like, you do have it in mind, of course, and you always want the performer to feel as comfortable as possible. And there's a few things that you can do, but sometimes you do have to use those textiles because it's the only way to represent that. If you're doing, I don't know, if you're doing a Chekhov play that are talking about being in Moscow in winter, you cannot avoid it, the fact that it's a very, very hot, a very, very cold weather. So you have to make sure you represent that on stage. Or if you're doing Tennessee Williams, Streetcar Named Desire, the heat of that place needs to be palpable. You need to feel the heat and the humidity. So it's also very important that you also represent that the same way, right? So yeah, it is tricky because especially under the lights, like the temperature can even be much higher than in the house where the audience is. And you try to do whatever you can to alleviate that heat for the actors. But I think it's kind of like, that's one of the weird situations that you have to somehow find what is the perfect balance for both for the look of the character as well as the comfort of the actor.
As the
And of
actor.
course, if it's a play, it's different than a musical that you have to be dancing.
When an original design is made, then in the future the play, because I read sometimes, or I see sometimes, and I perform in a lot of regional plays and even tours where the design could be modified. Is that something that it is written from the beginning when the royalties, or I don't know how to put this in a question, but I'm assuming that there's certain original designs that it has to be always the same, even though the play is being made on Broadway. Like, for example, the beautiful Carole King play that you design is always the same design.
Yes, I mean, like what happens is like, for example, that show, Beautiful, the Carole King musical, it lasted almost 6 years on Broadway. That's a very long time, and we have a lot of different actors stepping in the role. I usually have an associate designer. In that case, I had a phenomenal associate. I was very lucky. Usually, he will take care to do, if I'm not around, to do this, what we call the puddings for new actors, right? And you always do the original design, but you adapt it a little bit to the body of each person,
Exactly.
unless it's a specific requirement. But like the idea is like once the show it's frozen, meaning that when you don't do any changes anymore, and the show
Right.
has to be executed like visually the same way until it closes, is that you respect the original design.
The original design and the original type of casting. For example, the next actress couldn't be somebody who doesn't fit in my designs. No, I'm just
Well, it's
kidding.
not always no, yeah,
Right.
it's not always the case. Sometimes like you make also, and most of the time you make new clothes. Sometimes the clothes are in good shape enough that you can alter it to make it work for the
Sure.
new actor. And sometimes it depends the case. It could be what we call a vacation swing, which is going to be just for like a few weeks or a month or two or whatever. So you try to make it the easiest way for everybody involved.
Is Alejo Vietti easy to work with?
I hope so. Not,
You seem
I,
to be a lot of easy, like easy going
let's,
and nice and gentle,
let,
and
let, let me tell you something, Anibal, because it's something that it's very interesting what you just asked me. I hope to. I
okay,
always say that we as artists,
sure.
we have two parts. I think we have the artist that strives for excellence in whatever you do, whether it's acting or designing or whatever you do. And then you have the persona, who is the person who carries the act, the artist. And I think it's very important that you nourish and you polish both of them, right? The persona is the person that actually that relates to other and how they relate to other, how they communicate to other people, how they react to different types of situation, different type of personalities, etc. So I think it's very important that you give them both of these sides as much dedication and nourishment and work on them all the time to make sure that I think myself that you try to excel on both ends of the
And
art.
also, you mentioned before that the person has to feel comfortable. And also, I think all the actors, we are all very vulnerable. That sometimes, we have like, I don't know, we self-esteem is like, oh, I don't know, that's make me look like, I don't know, maybe. Do you think that it looks good on me? So sometimes we really trust you, and I think it's very difficult for a designer, particularly a wardrobe designer, to work with those vulnerabilities, right? Um, so I think there's also a relation with the person, as you say, from you person, the designer, when you are designing for somebody, like you have to know exactly probably sometimes some feelings of that person and see if she feels vulnerable or he feels vulnerable wearing this or that, right?
Oh yeah, it's definitely very, very important, especially if you're dealing with a character that actually doesn't have, for example, doesn't have to look that good, or you have to enhance or add, give them like padding to make them look a different way that is less flattering than their own body, etc. I mean, they have to engage, and usually actors, are very intelligent creatures, and they bring so much to the table, and they participate in the creation of these characters all
Sure.
together with me, right? Because at the end of the day, right, what I do, it only works when the actor is wearing it. It
Exactly.
comes to life when the performer puts it on. As pretty or as accurate or as good or as perfect for the character, it only works when the performer is wearing it, and everybody involved in the storytelling is telling the same story at the same time, the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody goes on the same road, not in parallel roads.
Right. And for example, were you always good drawing things when you were a kid? Or you were?
I guess you know, to this day, I don't feel like I'm like the best sketch artist at all. Far from it. But I think I'm like good enough to make, you know, to represent what I want to.
I've seen
You know what?
some of your designs and they look very pretty. So I was wondering, when is the first time that Alejo, being a little kid in Rosario, maybe start like drawing something that people says, "Ooh, Alejo, you're good at this."
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I never thought like me of being like a good, you know, oh, good or anything like that.
Right.
But I always like to draw. That's for sure. I will always be like pen and paper and pencils and markers and whatever it is.
And do you keep all the designs, the original? Do you keep it from you, for you?
Well, from my career, yes. Everything I drew when I was a kid, no. I kind of like, unfortunately, after I did it, I will like toss it. But otherwise, I keep, yeah. And now I sketch digitally because it's much easier.
Claro.
I can do it on a train. I can do it on a plane. I don't have to carry around, you know, paper and pencils and markers and watercolors. So
exactly. So the materials are compacted into like, you know, an app or whatever design. Acá hay algunos mensajes. I'm sorry that I'm switching and interrupting and now to Spanish un poquito.
Sí, también.
Porque hay algunos que escriben como Diego que dice genio Alejo.
Hola, Diego.
Hola Diego. Gracias por estar viéndonos. Y then I am very appreciated of all the rest of the people who are like watching us like now. I am Dr. Sean Alfredo Richards, Nadcaf. Perdón si lo digo mal. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it well. Nadcap Fun. Solomon. Solomon. I can't see anything. Vivian. Jair Mostafa en español, ¿cómo estás? Aracamana. Martu Santoro, _. María Elena Zoila. Jana Gabriel, thank you for watching us. Andre Vietti. ¿Andre Vietti es un familiar? ¿Andre Vietti?
Andrea tiene que ser. Si es Andrea, un beso grande.
Hola Andrea, si sos vos. Porque viste que alguna gente se mete en el vivo y después se va. You see, some people, when we are live, they just check, oh, who's this guy who's talking today? Let's see, what is he talking about? And then you mention them and they go like, boom, they go away. Sometimes, a ver, mira, acá, por ejemplo, nunca me gusta agarrar preguntas. I never like having questionnaire, like ready to go. But sometimes, and it's particularly because I didn't think that this would be conducted in English. You know what? I never thought about that. But there's members of your followers. No?
I guess. No, I don't know.
Por eso de golpe me quedé como que digo, bueno, si lo hacemos todo en inglés, lo hacemos todo en inglés. Son las 4:44, it's 4:44 p.m. here, live from Hollywood, California, and we are with Houston at this moment, which is 2 hours difference with me, which I'm Pacific time. So there is 6:44. Thank you for watching that. But what it is interesting about being a costume designer? Mira qué pregunta. Look at this stupid, silly question. What it is interesting about that?
Well, I just love it. I just cannot imagine myself doing what I do. What is interesting about it is that I'm lucky enough that hop from project to project to project, to meet all these wonderful people, to collaborate with all these wonderful artists on stage, off stage, travel around the world. I've been very blessed. I've been very, very lucky that I've been able to work in the United States as well as all over the world. I consider myself very fortunate that I can develop what I think is my passion, what I consider is my passion, what I know is my passion, and I can do it, to collaborate with all these wonderful people.
And what amazing also is because you also get like not only the feedback but knowledge. You get a lot of knowledge from other talented people who you have to work with. It's always for me like a pyramid. The theater, it's a lot of people all together for one project, which is the play finally, right? I have another interesting question that I got just in case I ran out of questions. How do you describe a custom design? How do you describe a custom design? I don't even understand the question,
Well,
but anyway.
A costume design will be another element that defines the character, right? So let's say an example. When the curtain goes up and the lights goes up and you see someone on stage and they are ready, they're dressed, and they don't move, they don't talk, they don't do anything. But just because the way they look, you already have information about them.
That's amazing.
You know something about them. You know if they're rich, if they're poor, if they're like intellectual, maybe, if they're tidy or if they're not tidy, if they're like sloppy in the way they dress, the body language and what they wear is very informative because that's a visual element that comes really fast to you, sometimes even faster than the audio part of it. So I think it's very important. What do they look like, right? And you can say something very simple. You can say somebody is wearing jeans and a white t-shirt.
Correct. That's very important also, because I guess that the body language, as you're saying, modifies the actor's performance when they do have the wardrobe on them, right?
Exactly. Like the way they wear it is very important. As I was just telling you, let's say you have somebody in jeans and a white t-shirt, but there's a million possibilities. Are those jeans loose? Are they tight? Are they distressed? Are they new? Are they dirty? Do they have holes? Do they have a crease? Are they folded? Is the t-shirt too big, too small, distressed? So all those things, how are they wearing it? Do they roll the sleeves? All those tiny little details, that's so important. And you work with that when you put it in the actor in front of a mirror in the dressing room, and you develop the character. And you don't do it like on the first try. As you evolve and as you get to rehearsals and to technical rehearsals, you keep working on it when you see it under the lights, etc.
Totally. And I remember working with
collaborative.
Oh, I'm sorry that I interrupted you. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, it's a very collaborative art that you need to collaborate with the other artists in the room in order to generate a good result.
I was thinking that sometimes certain choreographers told the girls in the cast, well, you are going to be wearing high heels, so I rather you have the high heels now in the rehearsal period. Same thing with if the girls are wearing, skirts, like let's say this big rounded, no sé cómo se dice pollera plato, but anyways, I don't have that vocabulary in me, but if it's a very, I should say, big skirt where you have to, do the choreography in certain sequences with the fabric and the steps for the rehearsal period of time. Does also the costume designer think about that period of the play, rehearsals, like giving, well, depending on the production, right? Because giving the actors some materials to work with in the meantime?
Yes, we give what is called rehearsal closes. Whether it's a coat, whether it's a skirt, whether it's whatever it's needed in order to, develop the action of the choreographer. You usually do build a little wardrobe of rehearsal clothes that they can use for rehearsal. Especially if it's a dress that has a train, or like you say, a big skirt, or a hat that I have to do something with a hat, and shoes as well. They're very important.
That's very important, because I remember if you don't wear a hat while you are in rehearsal and you pretend that you have a hat, there's a point where the director doesn't know, what are you guys doing? What are you doing with your hand here? No, I'm holding my hat. Well, bring a hat if you need it, because then it changes your behavior. And also circumstantially, because the things that you have mentioned to me represent the circumstances of the role. Like, for example, you said if it's a dirty kind of person, always wear dirty clothes, it's because some aspect of its personality, his or her personality, tends to show it also in the clothes. So that maybe he's awkward and he's always some things staying here or there. So I think that you will have that in mind. Hay saludos desde Italia, Napoli. Certamente, tanti grazie desde Napoli, tutti li saluti. Però che ora è in Napoli? Allora, ma che ora è allora in Italia? Sono le 2 della mattina. Non fare niente? Just fare la dolce vita? Non fare niente qui. È dolce far niente, praticamente, perché sono le 2 della mattina. E stiamo guardando questa diretta. Gracias, Italia. Sono le 4:51. Alejo, it's 4:51. I can't believe that it's going to be an hour since I am on the air. Mira, what are the 4 major elements of custom design? 4 major elements of custom design.
Oh, well, that sounds like such an academic question.
It is, because I got it from Google. I said, I'm going to ask certain questions to a custom designer. I said, what can I ask?
I'm going to ask you something more personal. I think silhouette is very important. I think it's the most important element, the silhouette, the shape, whatever it is.
Wow.
You have to, help the character defining the silhouette, whether it's a period silhouette, whether it's a modern silhouette, whether, whatever it is, but silhouette is very important. Fit is very important, whether it fits correctly or it doesn't purposely. So you have to make sure that you do that. Color is important because color is part of the storytelling as well, right? And I think another one will be styling, how you put it together. Does this person wear this shirt with a tie, without a tie? Is the tie loose? Does it have a pocket square? Does he have a pocket watch? So I think those elements are all important.
Wow, qué maravilla. And I thought that it was a silly question that I got out of the blue. Oh my God. A ver, maybe this is another important question. What is the main purpose of custom design?
Well, the main purpose is to help define the character and to help, telling the story. That is the main purpose, like character comes first.
Qué maravilla, Alejo, I can't believe it. Not only you are very passionate and very talented in what you do at designing, but you're also a very intelligent and educated person.
I've been very lucky. Anibal, I will say something, even though we switched to English when we're supposed to be speaking Spanish, that I've been very lucky because I've been able to work with very talented people, not only actors and directors and artists, but I've been very lucky because I have great mentors. And one of them actually, I think is like watching us. His name is Jess Golson, and he's a brilliant designer. Brilliant. I was very fortunate to work with him in many projects, and I'm very lucky that I'm his friend, and I have learned so much from him.
I really appreciate you watching us also, and what I appreciate the most is that we decided to jump into English with no hesitation whatsoever. And I think that that is something that also I should say Spanish speakers are appreciating just watching us, because there's a lot of people from Italy and from Argentina as well watching us at this moment, lo cual quiero agradecer. So I want to really thank you guys. Pero we are 5 minutes away, and I don't want to take more than 1 hour to the talented Alejo Vietti. Estoy tan agradecido, Alejo. Me encanta escucharte. Me siento realmente halagado. Qué sé yo, cómo decirlo, sin llegar a ser... la verdad, me encanta escucharte hablar y todo lo que decís es tan inteligente. Hay una relación tan directa con el actor.
Te voy a decir algo, Aníbal, que guardé para el final, pero cuando vivía en Argentina, yo una de las tantas cosas que hice, además de hacer un poco esto y demás, trabajaba en radio y televisión en Rosario, y tenía programas en los cuales hacía un poco lo que estás haciendo vos ahora.
Wow.
Y iba a Buenos Aires a ver estrenos de obras y después iba con un camarógrafo y hacemos notas y todo. Y fui al estreno del Beso de la Mujer Araña. Y te hice una nota a vos, a Juan y a Valeria. Hace mucho tiempo.
Me muero.
Que Harold Prince la había dirigido en Buenos
Sí, sí.
Aires.
Ay, no, qué maravilla. Ahí me tocaste a mí una fibra. Y estamos en Spanish. Lo tenemos que poner todo esto en inglés, es un quilombo. But he was at the opening night of one of, the place that I've been in, and that is very,
Kiss of,
for me, emotional.
yes, Kiss of a Spanish Woman, directed
Oh,
by Harold Prince in Buenos Aires.
qué
I
lindo.
remember. And you were absolutely brilliant, Molina.
Oh my God. Para mí fue. Bueno, ¿qué te voy a contar, Alejo? Si estoy hablando de vos, no quiero hablar de mí cuando estoy con un invitado como vos. Solo quiero decirte, no decirte, sino ahora que estamos en español y casi para cerrar, ¿cuándo fue la primera vez que te salió algo para diseñar en Estados Unidos? ¿Recordás ese primer proyecto? Do you remember what is the first project that suddenly is in your hands when you are here in the United States, for example? Do you still remember that?
I do because I came to the U.S. without knowing anyone, without having papers, without having any money. Actually, I had $800 that my sister had lent me. I did have so much passion in me for what I wanted to do, and I knew I was like very self-taught, and I knew who were the designers I like and admire, and I called them up. I picked up the phone book at the time. There was no Google, and they were there, and I called them up, and pretty much everybody I called gave me an interview, and I started. My first work was assisting. Very, very low assistant with Ann Ross. Ann Ross was a movie and theater, very famous designer who just won the Oscar for The English Patient. And then she recommended me to someone else, and then I worked in a costume house and started doing little projects. And my first show was a Wendy Wasserstein play at a very small company in Brooklyn in Park Slope called the Gallery Players.
Qué lindo. My God. Y siempre va a estar ahí en el recuerdo. It's always going to be in your heart.
Oh, absolutely. I think like whatever, like we are consequent in a way of like what our life has been, right? And we've learned from the past and forever experience that we have, good or bad. I always you always learn something. I'm not the same designer as well as I'm not the same person who was 25 years ago. And I owe that to the experience I accumulated during all these years, assisting, being an associate, and designing my own shows.
Alejo, la verdad, I'm very proud of you, man. You make us really look awesome and amazing. As an Argentinian, I'm very proud of your career, all your, everything that you have accomplished along all this long career. I don't know, maybe this is probably more personal, but is it easy for Alejo to adapt to a different culture? I know that it's many years since you're living out of Argentina, but was it difficult somehow for you to establish in another place?
Oh, yes, of course, because you only know what you lived and what you went through, and I only knew life as I experienced life growing up in Argentina. And everything I knew about the U.S. was through like TV and film, which is not the same case when you move to a different country. And I did speak English, but it was not perfect to to work and to. So you have to adapt. Even as a designer, I have to adapt myself and learn the ways of how to be a designer in the U.S. What is interesting about it is like I wonder if like somehow during the process I kind of like left my personal approach or my Argentinian approach just to do it in a way that probably was expected here. And it's something that I'm rediscovering now. I think there's a lot that happened, in theater in the last 2.5 years, especially during the pandemic, and I'm much more now intrigued and much more interested right now in digging up all that my roots in a way, and trying to kind of like fuse everything that I have inside of me, my Argentinian roots as well as my 27 years living in the US.
I can can't stop thinking about all the titles. Evita comes to my mind, and it's 5 p.m. already here in Los Angeles, and it's 7 p.m. in Houston, and it's about to finish this live streaming with Alejo Vietti, porque si no me va a matar, otherwise you're gonna kill me. Pero Evita comes to my mind, and I've seen a beautiful designs that you made for this last production of Evita, which is actually happening now at the Kennedy Center, right? Or is
No,
it Kennedy?
it's at ART, American Repertory Theater in Boston.
Correct, yes, I'm sorry, yes, totally different, I'm sorry. But Sammy Cannell directs the play, right?
Correct.
She's very talented, is she?
Very talented young director. I'm like very lucky to having the chance to work with her. We did this production at the City Center in New York in 2019.
Correct. I auditioned for that production.
Oh, you did? Oh my God.
I did. And it was a pleasure to me. It was a great experience, because sometimes the experience is in doing it, not only getting the part, right? It was very pleasurable for me.
Well, so yes, I love doing that production, and now we developed that production because that production was done really, really fast for ART. The production is going to stay there for, it's a long run. It's until the end of July, and then goes to Shakespeare Theater. Go to the Shakespeare Theater in Washington, D.C., and hopefully, next year it comes to New York. We'll see. Hopefully.
Yes. Hopefully. Gracias, Alejo. Thank you so much. Ya nos pasamos 2 minutos de las 5. Gracias, te agradezco tanto. I'm so appreciated of this live. Thank you to everyone who was watching. I'm gonna post it right now on my page. So if you wanna enjoy after, later on this chat, this simple chat with Alejo Vietti, que es un talento recontra. Para vos que vivís en la Argentina, si no sabés quién es Alejo Vietti, ve este vivo y no lo vas a poder creer. Y si lees, como leí yo en Google, todos los títulos que Alejo hizo, vas a decir, pero este es el argentino con más créditos en Broadway que existe en la historia del teatro argentino. Alejo, no sabía.
Un beso
que
grande.
nos conocíamos en persona. Mirá.
Te mando un abrazo grande, Aníbal, y bueno, nos veremos en algún momento cuando esté en Los Ángeles o vos vengas a Nueva York.
Definitivamente, nos debemos una cena y un abrazo juntos. Gracias. Ahora sí voy a guardar este vivo. Gracias, Alejo. Te mando un beso grande. Chao.
Un beso grande. Chao, Aníbal.